dirty diapers to talking about Korn.
I hear you, brother.
That's literally what I was doing before I came over.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Yeah, you're like, give me a minute. I was like, take
Yep.
your time.
Well, like,
'Cause I could almost tell just by your tone.
I'm knee deep in shit. Just
Yeah,
hold on a
yeah.
minute. I feel like Duke Nukem over here. Just give me a minute.
Was this episode 6?
Episode 6.
All right.
Hello.
Hi. You can see my hand. I'm back here behind you.
I'm not done posting yet.
It'll be better next time, I promise.
Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, hi.
Hey, hey, hey.
I'm just waiting for Dan to tell me it's safe.
Yeah. Let's give it a minute.
What's the safe word, Dan?
Joe, I'm gonna need you to cut this portion of it though out of the actual pod bean.
Don't worry, dude. The pod beam will always be pure.
All right. So I mean, you guys on YouTube, you're getting like a special treat.
You know, you're getting the pregame.
I mean, I haven't actually posted that we're doing this yet, so I doubt anyone's watching. But
Officially, we're not
if
doing
they
it.
are,
but
yeah.
Did I do better with the setup? Like, I put some info down here, and
That's beautiful, man.
and if you are happen to be watching this right now, you're like, that is a horrible camera angle. That is horrible lighting.
I know. Can I pick my nose?
I
and
can't
not
even
get
see
caught?
one guy. Like, it's like all I have to say to you is, it's gonna get better.
Dan, any product placement you'd like to use? Oh, yes, I have a Nintendo controller in my shirt. Buy
Drano.
Nintendo. Drano.
Buy Drano. Drink Drano.
What's our shameless plug of the podcast?
We'll get to that.
Drano.
Drano. Who out there likes Drano?
Ew.
I mean, it does the job.
This video has been flagged for trademark infringement.
Trademark it. Some muckety muck over Drano.
High above the mucky muck.
Castles made of clouds.
Ah.
There sits Wonder Josh.
That's me and Josh's life
Staring at
not much to
say when you're high above the mucky muck.
Be my theme music.
Dude, I want every pre-recording to be like this. Like we just run the video and whatever comes out. ends
whatever
up
happens,
online.
happens.
I like it,
I mean, not whatever happens, because that might be on, not appropriate for YouTube.
man.
Because there was that one time.
Well, I think as long as Dan's not getting, his, on his,
Not.
and that one,
No. No.
not that one time
Luckily, you can't see that guy.
or that other time, that one thing.
I mean, it could be.
All right, there's one person watching, and it's probably me, but hats off to that guy. God, I'm fat.
All right.
I love it. I love every roll.
That was the first one to comment.
Get ready for the greatest episode 6 in the history of episode 6. This is Discography Discussion.
Dude, if you throw another 6 on there, it's, even more metal.
That is Dan.
Hi.
Is that was my same thought when we first started?
Josh is back there somewhere. It's a horrible camera angle, and I do apologize.
Here you go.
So what's up, guys?
Not too much. I'm posting to YouTube right now. No, I'm sorry. I'm posting to Facebook. We're posting to YouTube.
Did you enjoy your vacation, Josh?
I did. It's not long enough. They never are. I had to
even
have fun.
close.
Now I'm back to doing the metal thing.
What is the metal thing? Who are we talking about tonight?
Korn.
Oh man.
Korn.
As in like Children of the Corn?
Yeah.
As in like
I'm the first one.
Who was that did that track with them? That was yeah, I don't remember enough. I have to look that
It
up.
wasn't
now.
Ice Cube, was it?
It might have been Ice Cube.
Yeah, that was Ice Cube on
Ice-T,
Children
yeah.
of the Corn.
Cube, yeah, I think it was.
So
Which was kind of cool.
who wants to tell me about Korn in a summary?
Are you ready?
Yeah, Korn. First of all, we're gonna get a lot of flack for this
I
because
was gonna say the new metal is
we're
gonna get thrown our way. I
we're
guarantee
a
it.
metal podcast and we're talking about Korn, so there goes all of our credibility.
Credibility
right?
flushed.
Here's the thing: I like Korn. It's heavy, it's dark. Yeah, they're screaming, and it's metal to me. Whether you want to call it new metal or whatever you want to call it, you can call it whatever you want because that's the beauty of the freedom of speech or whatever. So you can call it what you want to call it. We're talking about it. So
Well, before we get too deep into it, I'm going to say, thank you to everyone who is listening. Thank you to everyone who subscribes to the podcast. You can find Discography Discussion almost every way you can find podcasts. We are on iTunes. We are on Google Play. We are on TuneIn Radio. So if you have any Amazon Echo product, you can tell it to listen to Discography Discussion. And very soon we will actually be on Stitcher as well. I've been working on that one.
Ooh, Stitcher.
You know, the iTunes of Android for podcasts.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel like remembering everywhere we're at, we have a website now.
We do?
Yes, we do. It is called www.discussmetal.com.
Discussmetal.com.
Yes.
What are they going to find when they go there?
Well, right now it's only going to show them the main podcast page. So you can listen to all the episodes right there on the page if you want to do that. The other, in the future, we will have a blog coming up on there and some other plans for the future that we haven't unveiled quite yet.
We are also on Twitter at Discuss Metal. So for all you Twitter fanatics, come talk to us. We'd like to talk to you. So we decided to go with Korn this week.
Yeah, we did. Kind of a weird, ballsy decision, I guess, but I'm comfortable with it. So there you go.
So, what is Korn as far as? Whenever you look at a band, the bigger the discography, the more you have to ask the question, what have they contributed to music, be it hard rock, be it metal? What is Korn? Because Korn has been around, I think, since the early 90s.
Yep.
And, it's 2017 and they're still going. They've had ups and downs, as many bands have, especially from this era.
Mostly ups.
Yeah, I would say most of their discography is going to be on the upside.
Pretty solid.
I mean, you have a downside, maybe middle, tail end, but I mean, they're the first, I would say one of the first group of bands from the 90s that were using 7-string guitars and a much detuned, lower, slower, heavy kind of sound than your traditional, thrash metals,
right?
And, regular metals of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, thrash metal was still heavy at the time, but Korn was a different kind of heavy, a different breed of heavy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite Korn album, Josh?
Oh, Father the Leader, hands down.
All right, Dan?
I'm gonna go with Issues.
Really?
That's my close second.
Yeah, with a side note that I think that Untouchables is a better album, but Issues is my favorite.
Whenever I think of Korn, any band that I think of, even if it's not my favorite, I try to pick the album that is their definitive sound. With that in mind, Follow the Leader is my favorite because that to me is Korn.
I'll look at you guys.
When you listen to Follow the Leader and you hear the beginning of almost every single track, you know what album it is, you know what band it is, and how many bands can you say, you're ready to go from one song, one hit, the first 5 seconds of a song. Like bands like Faith No More, as soon as you hear that first song, that first chord of Epic, you know exactly what song is coming.
Right.
With Korn, you can be sitting anywhere doing anything, and you hear this. You know exactly what's about to happen.
Yep.
And that, to me, is the definition of an impact. When you have taken over the emotion of the next 5 minutes.
Yep, pretty much.
Well, I'm going to be that guy who's going to compare everybody to Metallica because that's what I do. For me,
Josh is a professional Metallica comparist.
This is going to be Korn. This is going to be their version of the Black Album for me. This is going to be the album that made them mainstream. They were all over radio, all over TV. Their tours were huge. This is where they were a household name of the new style of metal, I guess, if you want to say, the new metal that people hate. They were the kind of the front runners. This is what the start of that music sounding. This album is what put all those bands on the map. Limp Bizkit, Korn, Seven Dust, all those kind of bands that have that same kind of sound. They come from this album.
I agree with that.
I think.
So why do you say Untouchables is the best album, Dan?
Well, I think I'm going to save that for whenever we talk about Untouchables.
Oh, you don't want to spoil the surprise?
Not at this exact
Just
moment.
for the
no.
record, I'll agree with Dan. Issues is so close of a favorite. Just a hair behind. I love Issues almost as much as I do Follow.
So what is the worst song on your favorite Korn album?
Oh.
Damn, that's
That's
tough.
a tough one, isn't it? I'll save that for the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
Say, way to throw a curveball,
Because I'm
I know.
gonna. Hey, I'm taking over. You know it.
It's
Right.
more or less not what's your the worst. It's more of what's your least favorite.
Well, well, today is March 13th, 2017, and Korn today is Jonathan Davis, James Monkey Schaefer,
yep.
Reginald Fieldy, Arvizu. I forget how to say his last name, honestly.
Just call him Fieldy.
Yeah.
And Brian Head Welch.
There's
And
your core four there.
and Ray Luzier on drums.
Who's a great drummer, by the way. I'm glad that he stayed around with them.
Yeah, he's cool.
He is no David Silvera, but you know,
but I think he does just as good a job.
he does his own thing. You know, it's like when Shannon Larkin first joined Godsmack. It wasn't the same
Go
as Sully
Godsmack
playing.
again, man.
What?
I like Godsmack.
It's a fair
so
comparison.
All right.
You know, when
we're losing them. We're losing them.
when Shannon showed up, you know, it wasn't the same, but it was good, and I'm happy with it. And Josh talked about their newest album a few weeks ago being his album of the week.
Good.
And it is very much a return to form, but I'm going to lean on Dan because he wants to start at the beginning.
Yep.
And if we're going to start at the beginning, we've got to start with 1994, self-titled album, Korn.
Korn.
Great album. God, it was a good album.
So the first time I heard Korn, I mean, I was pretty shocked by it. It's different than anything I'd really heard at that point, and I was probably like a little baby almost when I first heard it. Had it on a cassette tape, still have the tape.
Yep.
And this was just very heavy, especially for 94. A lot of groove in the riffs. I remember Korn being described to me as a groove metal band at the time because, you know, everybody wants to call it nu metal now, but really, back then, I don't remember anybody referring to it as nu metal.
No, that's a term I think came along after, even Untouchables issues. I mean, in that,
Yeah, like it was every band that was coming out
7-8 years later.
that said they were nu metal, then like all the old school metal fans would get together and be all like, no, that's nu metal, you know. And I remember just being like, okay, well, whatever, you know.
I've always had a hard time with the nu metal label because the more you start to define what is nu metal, the less it applies to Korn. So Korn is
I
a
agree.
band
I
that
agree.
supposedly created this thing called nu metal, or they were one of the bands that were in at the inception. But the more you tell me what nu metal is, it becomes less Korn. You know, what is nu metal? It's hard rock and it's groovy and there's rapping and, you know, deep detuned guitars. It's like, well, yes, their guitars are detuned.
Right, but I mean, the downtuning is still a metal influence.
It always has
you know,
been.
so to say that it's not metal is really kind of, you know, ignoring the fact. You know, Norwegian black metal doesn't sound like, you know, Slayer, and that's still considered metal.
And Slayer's a huge influence on bands like that.
Right. So I mean, I don't think it's really valid to take something that's different, you know, just because you don't like things that are different.
I feel like the nu
You
metal
know.
definition is different to each person when you ask that person who's
Sure.
a music fan. There's no real solid definition you can come to when you say, what do you define nu metal? It's going to change from person to person. I don't know. I hate the term.
It bothers me because it's always a derogative. You know,
yeah.
it's-
It's a knock as it's, you know.
Yeah.
It's not. It's musicians who can't, you know, who don't play well. That's why they detune. That's why they play slow. They're not, you know, musically good. The lyrics aren't good.
And see, I'm not really aware of anything that was out around 94 that really sounded like this. And what you'd really be hearing here is groovy guitars. A lot of people don't like the first Korn album because they say it sounds kind of dry, and I could see that a little bit. In that it's much more like riff focused, I think, than previous than later Korn albums. That were a little bit more reliant on guitar effects and things like that, and
Which makes Korn sound like Korn more than some of those other bands. It's not just drop your guitar down on a 7-string as low as you can go and just hit chords. They used all sorts of effects pedals that weren't really used hardly at all, I think, by traditional metal guys. I mean,
Right.
traditional metal bands, it's buzz, your mid crunch, and whammy. That's it.
Right.
You don't really maybe a chorus pedal or
Right.
a delay, but
yeah,
these
like
guys
that.
start using effects that you're like, what the hell is that?
One of the things that stood out really to me as a vocalist was Jonathan Davis's performance on the first Korn record. I get a little bit of a hint of almost like a little bit of Pantera or Sepultura, like Soulfly kind of sound.
Soulfly.
Yeah, with the screaming and really on this record, Jonathan Davis probably was the best at screaming I think that he'd ever been. It's kind of weird at the beginning. He did this kind of like weird like scatting type of vocal.
I'm glad you hit on that because
Yeah.
that's somebody you never think of.
Yeah.
Is doing. I mean, you don't hear that in metal or even music too much. This scat. I mean,
No, the only thing I can even think of where I've heard anything like it was on Roots by Sepultura, which was I know a big influence on Korn. And I just think that was a really unique approach. He came across on this record as very sincere. He had a lot of problems. He was mad at the world. He hadn't been treated very well, hadn't lived a good life up to that point,
No.
And I think that was really that really shows in the songs some of the passion that you hear. His actual clean like melodic singing really wasn't that good on this one.
No. He got. I think you could tell he got better and was maybe coached a little better on later albums.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, even on the next one, he's not, like a superstar yet.
I'm sure somebody out there could, just quote an example and prove me wrong off the top of their head. But this is the first album I think I ever heard in the hard rock metal area that featured bagpipes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chutes and ladders.
Why?
Yeah.
Because our lead singer plays the bagpipes. So we stuck him on
How
a song.
metal is that?
Yeah,
though?
let's just throw it out there. He wears a kilt when he's playing.
Oh,
it,
yeah.
yeah.
He's 100% proud of it.
Yeah,
And who
that's
can blame
cool.
him? Who
That's
can blame
cool.
him?
And it became a signature of the band for a long time. Even now, if you listen to Korn, you're kind of waiting for the bagpipes to
Yep.
come in.
Right. Yeah. When are you gonna get that?
And
yeah.
they haven't been used very well in recent years, but this is one of those signature call to arms. Just like when you go see Metallica Joss and they start playing The Ecstasy of Gold. I'm waiting for Korn to play and John Davis just to walk out on stage with the bagpipes and it be chutes
Sure.
and ladders.
He still does that, by the way.
This album actually has a song on it called Daddy that Korn has,
I knew we were gonna have to talk about.
according
Daddy.
to the
Yeah,
story,
you
they
know.
played once live and have never played it again.
Yep.
It's a very emotional song. It deals with child abuse, sexual child abuse, and there's crying at the end of it. It's very intense, and I use the word weak a lot, and I remember there being a lot of criticism. There was a lot of criticism towards Korn from the metal community for that song because he's crying and they're like, oh, he's crying, he's whining and blah 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 blah. Well, first of all, I guarantee those people have probably never been molested as a child. So that's strike one. I mean, and strike two, I think it's not weak at all. I think it's passion, and it's a real reflection of how he was feeling at that time. I mean, to have experienced something so devastating and actually have enough balls to actually talk about it in his band, I mean, at that point, you're putting out a record that's gonna go on to be one of the biggest records ever, and you're sharing that experience with the entire world. So I don't think that's weak at all. I think that's balls.
Very ballsy. How many musicians will do that kind of thing? Talk about their personal life rather than just making up about somebody else's life,
Right, or just
writing about somebody else's life.
Yeah, writing lyrics about Satan.
Yeah,
it's like cop out.
Sure. We're supposed to do this.
Right. Yeah.
I think it shows off that these guys were definitely a fan of the band Radiohead because look at the quantity of songs with single word titles.
Oh,
you got
yeah.
Blind, you got Clown, you got Divine, you got Faggot, you got Predictable. It goes on.
Yeah. Actually, Faggot's one of those songs that maybe hasn't aged very well. You just kind of have to look at it from the perspective of 1994. You know? Like, because I mean, like if you're in high school now, and and I could be completely wrong about this. I'm a little far removed from that.
It's been a while for us.
Right, but now if somebody says, "Oh, hey, you're gay," ha ha ha, you're gay, people are gonna be like, "Well, what's wrong with that?" Whereas, back in 1994, in Middle America, this was not it was not an accepted thing, and I'm not saying that he's gay, but this song is really more about just the way he was treated, And even when I was in high school, that term got thrown around so much. Oh, you're just such a faggot. You're a faggot.
Queer,
yeah,
hey
you're,
douche. Like,
yeah,
okay,
like all the
right.
time, and constantly, you're hearing these things every single day, multiple times, from people that are physically threatening you, and I feel like this song just really captures that. It's actually kind of a hard song to listen to because I remember it. I don't have to hear a song about it. I lived it. Like.
You know what
Definitely
he's
get the
feeling.
theme of the high school,
Oh yeah.
Or middle school or grade school. I mean,
right.
I started getting called names like that as early as 5th grade.
Well, I don't think Korn was that far out of high school when they did this album. I mean, a lot of these songs were written before this album come out. So
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
I'm
some of the stuff
certain,
was
yeah.
done in high school and after high school. So, yeah, I mean, you can get where he gets the topic for a lot of this, a lot of the material in this album being from high school because they weren't out of high school very long.
Right, and that's another criticism I hear all the time, that the lyrics are immature.
Well, but look how old they are, though.
Right.
I mean, geez,
What kind
they're
of person were you when you were 17?
18, yeah, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old. I mean,
it's hard
you
to...
don't come out as your first band and be, completely polished at the beginning.
Right, but I mean, I hear it is completely sincere, and I have a lot of respect for it. And the music is appropriate for those types of feelings, and I think the band did a really good job of creating kind of a dark atmosphere, and a little depressing, but
I think that goes hand in hand with the messages that he has on an album.
right. And so I mean, as a debut album, I mean, musically it's heavy, it's dark, it's depressing, and it was a new type of heaviness for the time.
And then it goes into the depressing next album, which for me is not as good as some of their other early works.
Yeah.
Welcome to the B-sides from the last album.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, this is essentially the leftovers. This is their reload.
Yeah, I don't know if they
It's like they tried too hard. It's like they get a deal. They have some studio time here. And
like they rushed it. Maybe.
Yeah, it's like, all right, well, we got some stuff. Let's throw it down real quick and get it out there.
Well, and the problem I had with this record is that, again,
cheesy.
it was cheesy. It hasn't aged well at all. Not like the first album. The first album is kind of a time capsule, so
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily aged well, but it's still very listenable today. Life is Peachy, on the other hand, is a album filled with a good amount of indistinguishable noise, and not like in a good grindcore kind of way or anything. It's definitely more like they were just goofing off a lot of the time. They just certain songs are just riff ideas. They're not even fully fledged songs.
It sounds more like a jam session album than it does an actual
Right.
album.
And this was the very first record, so I mean, it's hard to believe that this is the same band that put out the second record, or in the first record, because, well, lyrically, they just come off as douchebags.
Yeah, like kind of we've made it. Look at us.
Yeah, and like a lot of like tough guy lyrics, which
Yeah,
I'm definitely
which is
not a huge fan of.
Well,
you
and it's
know.
not them though, which is surprising because they're not those kind of guys. I mean, John Davis was always anti-bullying, always
right.
that guy who got picked on. So it's weird to hear him act like the aggressor as opposed to a victim.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that sort of mentality shows up later on another album we're going to talk about. It's just like it's a party record through and through. It sounds like a jam. It's not, and it's weird because I remember kids in high school telling me that this is the best Korn record.
Oh yeah,
and I would listen to it and I would just be like, I don't hear it, man. I mean, it's okay. Like, I mean, if you're okay
Adidas.
with, yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. There's like one good song on the
maybe
whole thing.
Lowrider if you
Yeah.
like that kind of thing, but Adidas, yeah.
Yeah, there's a rad cover of Lowrider on
Yeah,
here.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
For a while, I used to think, and I still do to a certain extent, you can put on the first record and you can put on Life is Peachy and kind of consume them as one product if you want to.
Yeah,
And
but it's like mixing poop with a chocolate cake.
well,
I like chocolate.
I for years I would listen to the first record and you'd get to, I think it's Clown,
Yeah.
where the beginning of that song is like a minute of them being in the studio arguing about how to start the song.
Right.
And you hear them mention a word that didn't mean anything until Life is Peachy, which is twist.
Twist, yeah.
And then you kind of get the feeling, okay, they had 2 albums worth of stuff, and they picked the best stuff for the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then this was just, okay, this is everything else.
Yep.
But
they were probably playing a lot of the Peachy songs, before they even had the first album out.
Oh, I'm sure it was probably one of those. They had 15, 16 tracks that they could have, try to whittle it down to one album. And it's like, well, we really like these ones. Record company picks it up. It's like, hey, let's just go ahead and release these as another album.
Sure.
Bam, 2 years later, Life is Peachy.
Yeah, and this one did not grab me at all. It made me actually kind of really turn me off from the band for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I didn't listen to this album very much. I still don't. It's one of the I would say one of the early 5 or 6 albums that I listened to the least is definitely this album.
I will mention that the screaming is pretty good on this one, but beyond that, I don't get much redeeming quality out of it.
So, coming up next is the world's introduction to Korn for the people that weren't paying attention.
Basically, yeah, this is the Korn you'd hear on the radio.
This is the Korn everybody mainstream will know is this Korn.
Yep. Follow the leader. 1990, don't tell me. 8.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, they were like in 2-year intervals for a long time.
Yeah. So, this one has all the singles on it. You got Freak on a Leash, Got the Life.
Yeah.
It's on.
It's
Yeah,
on.
It's On.
Yeah. I mean,
Dead Bodies Everywhere.
Dead Bodies Everywhere, yeah.
BBK, Justin,
I mean,
Children
All
of
in
the
the
Corn.
Family. Children of the Corn.
when I heard, and the funny thing about this record, so if you have it if you have a physical copy of it and you put it in your CD player, you're not going to hear anything for like 3 or 4 minutes
like 10
because
tracks or something.
yeah, there's 12 tracks of silence, and then the 13th track starts.
right.
It's on. It starts off the
So
record.
technically, there's 25 songs on this.
Which was really cool when I was
And-
like 13.
Yeah.
Like now.
A tad annoying.
Right, yeah. Now it's a little frustrating, and I don't have to deal with that because I listen to most of my music digitally. So,
Yeah.
but so like when It's On kicks in, you're not hearing really the Korn you heard on Korn or on Life is Peachy. My immediate thought upon hearing that song was that this is something different. And this was kind of quote unquote their sellout album without actually being that at all.
Yep.
This was heavy guitar effects.
And harmony.
And lots of harmony.
A lot of harmony between Head and Monkey in these albums.
All of a sudden, John Davis can sing.
Oh yeah, a huge
that-
difference. I think he ended up getting some. He had to have gotten some coaching. or
Yeah, well,
something.
and they were major. They were major
Yeah, I mean,
at this
so
point,
I'm sure this stuff was at his disposal.
right? So they, I love the guitar effects. I love the vocal effects. I like that the lyrics have kind of returned to a more personal level. For the most part, there are some really dumb songs on here too, but lyrically, but I mean musically, I would say this one's pretty rock solid.
Yeah, you mentioned Head and Monkey. Talk about one of the iconic guitar duos of all time.
Oh, especially.
You
I
know,
mean,
You could argue when you listen to the records which one contributed more to the sound of Korn or the quality of Korn, and I'm sure we will discuss that later.
Oh, yeah,
but
you'll hear
these two together, it's them. And
these guys were phenomenal at writing riffs together and playing off each other. And I mean, like I said, yeah, like we talked about the first album, you can tell it's just kind of just some heavy riffs, a little bit kind of like hip hop beat kind of sounds. Here it's like you've got like high pitched sound here, cool effect there. They're harmonizing at the same time. It goes along with the lyric line. It goes along with the bass and slap bassing. I don't know, that was a big thing for me in this album too. That was opposed to the first two. Fieldy has some great slap bass sound in this.
How many mainstream bands do you know where you can hear the bass player?
Oh gosh, yeah, especially from this era.
Yeah.
also David Silvera's best drumming.
Yeah.
His
I mean-
grooves are locked in. They're interesting. They're different.
Technical sounding. He's very technical.
When you think you are listening to a rock album, all of a sudden you're listening to it's not exactly a samba beat, but you get the point. Why? Because I can. I'm David Silvera. And Korn being a mixture of those styles or those sounds, those mostly seem to come from their community. They had a big focus around Oildale in California. So there's your hip hop, there's your rock, there's your groove, there's your different. And it just all goes together. A lot of guests on this album.
Yeah.
You know, you got Ice Cube on Children of the Corn. You got Fred Durst on All in the Family. And one of the greatest hidden tracks of all time.
Cheech.
You got Cheech.
Cheech is on there.
Why?
Yeah.
Because Korn decided to play Earache My Eye.
And
Yes,
why
yes,
not?
they did.
Very, very
Why
differently than it had
not?
ever been heard before.
I think musically in this album, I was just thinking about this. This is the kind of album you could headbang and bob your head and like get like a funky beat going. Like it all comes together in this album. Like it's not just an album to where you're just headbanging all the time. There's a part where you can headbang. Like now, like what is this? Reclaim My Place.
This is BBK.
BBK. I mean, you can sit there and bob your head. Like it's a good beat to it. But there's
Yeah.
other tracks in here where you're like got the life. Like you can headbang through that song if you really wanted to, and the beat is not. I don't know. It's so hard to explain. Like it's got just a good mix of metal sound, hip hop sound, effects. Great. At least I love John Davis doing scat. Like just the different sounds he makes with his voice.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the dissonance too. That's on this album a little bit more than because Life is Peachy had it too, but it wasn't very refined. Here, it works with the songs. It's more of a controlled, chaotic sound, and I think this one had a lot of atmosphere to it, mostly because of the guitar effects, and like the vocals are spot on. There's still a good mix of what I like about this being a mainstream record is that the vocals for the most part are acceptable, but when they get really intense, it's enough. It's still metal enough to make your average listener a little uncomfortable, and
Just a hair.
and that's what I like is because it gets pretty intense in places, like dead bodies everywhere and
Classic.
yeah. There was another song too. I can't remember what it was called at the exact moment. Oh well, it's not
Some
important.
more bagpipes.
So, following what I believe to be the quintessential Korn album, you get this is 1999.
Yeah.
1999's follow-up.
Which is almost
Issues.
as good as Follow.
Let's see.
Yeah, I like it more.
And it sounds different too. It's not, I would say it's a pretty big change musically than Follow the Leader.
It sounds like the same band that put out Follow the Leader, but
It's a different vibe to me for sure.
I just think this one was a little bit more focused. There was a little too much, I feel like there was too much jarring transition in Follow the Leader. Because me being more of a metal fan than a rap fan or a pop fan, certain songs it was very hard for me just to get into. Like as soon as I heard somebody rapping, I was almost out. Which is silly, I know, because it's part of their style and it's kind of always been there. However, I just I didn't really like songs like All in the Family. From a lyrical perspective, I thought they were just stupid. It's stupid fun, but
Yeah, that's
it's,
like a song that they're just messing around with the studio
yeah.
that made the CD.
right. And again, it was a really cool song when I was 13.
Yeah.
But now, as an adult, I listen to it. I'm like, this is just ridiculous.
You got to be in the mood for it.
Yeah. Issues, on the other hand, had a little bit more focus, a little less of that, and the songs seemed to flow together better.
I would say a deeper, darker, darker sound, maybe feel to this one.
A lot more atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was the first time that Korn turned down the 90s and turned up a little bit more atmosphere. There was this time in music where reverb was a sin.
Right, yeah.
And this was before the loudness wars that we got in the early to mid 2000s, where it just became how hard can you drive the dynamics of your song.
Right.
And it was a nice change. It almost takes the foot off the gas just enough so that you're not sitting there feeling overwhelmed, but every single song that hits you still hits you. I mean, you've got Falling Away From Me, you've got Make Me Bad, you've got Somebody Someone, No Way, Let's Get This Party Started,
Trash.
Am I Going crazy. You know?
Yeah, Let's Get This Party Started is
Yep.
my favorite Korn song, actually. And
It fools you into thinking it's a nice song.
not really.
I was going to say, I would disagree with there.
It
But
still sounds like somebody's trying to get me in the
I was
back of
gonna
their
say,
van. Yeah,
I listen to this and I'm looking at the back, looking over my shoulder, going, okay, is there someone behind me?
I feel like a spider's crawling up my shoulder through half these songs.
Get a chill.
And because they are a little creepy, and that's what I like about them. I mean, this album definitely takes me to a much darker emotional place, even more so than the self-titled. Because these are more, I guess, because lyrically, we're talking about more grown-up problems now.
Yep.
The first album was, this is what it was like when I was a kid, and then you go to Issues, and it's like, hey, guess what? I'm grown up now, but I have issues.
I still have the problems.
And this album just really, to me, John Davis's singing couldn't be better. Actually, it could be on the next record, but I didn't know that at the time. So I thought his singing was really good. His screaming was a lot better. There was a lot more, vocal layering going on here. Because I think there was more guitar layering and stuff in Follow the Leader. And there is here too, but I think the vocals definitely took a huge step up on Issues. To be, John Davis became more of a, dare I say, more dynamic vocalist. Was able to handle a lot of different things within each song. Whereas, previously it was either, okay, this is the song that I'm singing on, or this is the one I'm screaming on,
Exactly. Do I sing or scream?
Right.
Later on in the career, there will be some experiments. There will be some changes that a lot of people want to blame directly on John Davis for being a lead singer and wanting to try something new.
Right.
At this time, something new was be a better singer, create a bigger soundscape with your voice, and this may be the biggest the classic Korn was. And
I could see that.
And
Yeah.
and when the first time I heard the next record, Untouchables, all I could think was, what are they doing? The tone of the guitars was different. The drums didn't sound right. It sounded like somebody took Issues, put it in a mastering program, and just turned the reverb up to like 70. Like, way too much reverb.
7,000.
And
But they go up to 11.
Right.
After 2 or 3 listens, and mostly because of you, I started to listen to it differently, and I realized these might be some of the best songs Korn has written.
I like the crunch of this album.
Yeah, this album's heavy, heavier than Issues even, and man, there's just so much going on. It's like they took everything that they learned on Follow the Leader and Issues and actually threw a lot of it away and started over. The songs are very different sounding than what we're used to with Korn. But this is not like a we've gone soft or we've gone pop. I think this record might have not done as well commercially as Issues or Follow the Leader. Did it? Oh, I didn't really pay attention to it.
No, it wasn't. It was like I think they pretty much peaked at those 2 albums, and then when this stuff came out, it sounded better or as good, but commercial people were like, okay, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Whereas like the true fans and the true diehard music people were like, wow, these guys actually sound really good in this album when you really listen to it.
Yeah, it's more the music on this one, more so than the lyrics.
The lyrics are weird. It's almost like psychotic lyrics.
Yeah, they are weird. Yeah, and
yeah.
I mean they're weird too, in that John Davis does appear again to be the aggressor in places, which is a little weird. I mean, the dude's got to weigh like what, 112 pounds soaking wet,
if that.
So it's
120 with his bagpipes.
Interesting, yeah, or add another 15 for his like what, solid metal mic stand.
This album actually introduced what we would come to jokingly call the John Davis overtone.
Yeah, there's a choir of John Davis in the background of every song.
Hadn't heard that before, and you'll this is all you'll ever hear again, because it's almost every single song from here on out.
It's in the new album.
Definitely.
A little bit, yeah.
It's just John being John.
It's okay. It's considered songwriting, didn't
it's
you
called
know?
having more studio time.
Exactly.
Sure. More money, more studio time.
Sure. This record's great though. It definitely has a different vibe than Issues had, and like I actually from a technical standpoint, this is the best Korn record.
Why do you say that?
all of the songs are redeemable. This was one of the very first Korn albums where I wasn't skipping songs, because I mean, still when I listen to Korn, there's might be 3 or 4 songs I leave off of every album. Whereas I'm not that way with Untouchables. Untouchables, I listen to all of it because
Put it in, listen to all of it.
Yeah, from beginning to end, sometimes 2-3 times.
It's interesting how many of their albums at this time have that quality. Self-titled, Follow the Leader, and almost Issues.
Yeah, I'd say almost. There's just like 3 or 2 off the Issues I don't listen to.
That you put the whole album in and consume it. And this might have been that time in music where bands were pressured to make good records, and Korn had done several.
Right. They're on top of their game here.
Well, sure. I mean, beforehand, it was like if you could just get, 1, 2 singles, 3 singles off your album, if the rest of the album was shit, it didn't matter because you made your money off those 3 singles.
Exactly.
Now, now with, what is this? What year is this? 2002? 2000?
2002.
So, I mean, downloading is a huge thing at this point, so people can pick and choose what songs they want to take or buy or however you want to do it. So, yeah, it's hard. It is hard for bands to have the wherewithal to put out an entire album because people aren't buying entire albums at this point anymore.
Right.
You just buy songs. So.
And not even then. I don't think in 2002 people were even buying songs.
Probably not. Maybe
it was mostly just illegal downloads at that time.
Whatever song I can get instead of a whole album.
And at that time, nothing was sacred.
Nope.
Believe it or not, there was. I mean, some of these albums. I remember hearing. I remember hearing versions of these songs, like versions that were probably never supposed to leave the studio, like demo versions and stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, like somebody took it home, doctored it through a an MC program or something, and then you have a remix.
Yeah, a kid at school would burn a CD and be like, "Listen to this. This is the new Korn album," and then you'd listen to it and be like, "Well, it was cool, but
nope, don't think so.
It sounded real low quality, and
it sounds like someone's basement." Oh.
Right? Yeah. There's a guy standing next to the studio with a microphone, with a tape recorder. Yeah.
Guys, do you think it sounds good?
That's right.
Right.
Sounds like it's in a bottle.
It's like it's bottled up inside. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, and Thoughtless deserves some mention. We're listening to that right now, and Thoughtless, it kind of goes back to the old Korn lyrically. It's about bullying. It's about being picked on. Stands out a little bit though on a record where he, has songs,
about beating other people's asses.
Yeah, about beating people up and
some mixed messages there.
Yeah, so it's a little weird, but maybe he's talking about the people he was talking about in Falls. Who knows?
Or maybe himself. Who knows?
Yeah,
mad at himself for not standing up.
Could have been.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
Unless we can get him on.
Yep. Alone I Break was a really different song on Untouchables. Korn had never done anything like that before. It's a slow kind of reflective song. It's the slow song, and Korn not really known for that.
Not up until this point, no.
I mean, wouldn't consider Korn to be like
Lowrider was as
band,
slow as it got before here.
Yeah, like a fast band. Yeah, you rake my eye at the beginning. Slow it down, crazy slow.
Way down.
Yeah.
The birth of hidden tracks.
But yeah, I mean, this song Alone I Break. I mean, sounds almost like a pop song, almost like it's very different for Korn, but it's still very them, and they really made it work here.
Well, it would explain why it got radio play.
Absolutely. Which is so. I mean, so at this point, Korn's at the top of their game.
Yeah, I mean they're peaked at this point. I mean they're all over the place. They're doing sold out stadium tours.
Right. They're probably all on drugs at this point. Yeah,
I mean let's be honest.
That'll be important
alcohol.
later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so they've peaked at this point in their career. They're not going to get any bigger than this.
Would you say at this point that they were almost the biggest rock band in the world?
Yeah. So what do we say? This was around 2000. So yeah, I mean, I think if the bands are out at the time, Limp Bizkit was already on their way down by this point.
Yeah, they didn't. They didn't survive long.
Bands like Rage weren't together anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the whole
Metallica was about to make very bad choices.
Yeah, I mean
right.
They were doing their own thing. I mean the whole quote unquote new metal sound of all those bands. I mean they came out at the same time when Korn's first album came out, and then by this point they're already on the backside of their being. I mean they're already on the downside of their career by now. I mean Maybe bands like Deftones or something are still kind of around. But,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Deftones is doing their own thing.
Yeah, I mean,
you know.
so yeah,
like
sure.
Korn was. You know, they were trying to do something different.
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree that they were probably the it factor in this time period, rock, metal, whatever wise.
Yeah. So, for all intents and purposes, when Take a Look in the Mirror came out in what, 04?
03.
03.
End of 03, I believe, because I remember getting it early.
So less than a year, or less than 2 years, we get Take a Look in the Mirror.
For me, this is an album that you don't listen to an entire. For me, this is like you listen through the whole thing. You're like, wow, there's like 3 songs or 4 songs I like, but don't love.
As far as I'm concerned, this is another Life is Peachy.
Yeah, it's a step back if you want. I mean, if that makes sense. Like
It is.
it doesn't sound very good produced.
Lyrics sound like douchebags.
Yeah, the sound's a little weird. Not Korn. The music, it's not heavy and crunchy like some of their stuff. There's not as many harmonies between the two of them. The guitar effects are weird sounding. It's just, I don't know. It sounds like a rushed. Yeah, it just sounds unpolished, an unpolished album.
Yeah, like it got rushed out, and it had a whole bunch of, like, it was almost like, you know, I always use this as a comparison, but Star Wars Attack of the Clones. It's kind of like that in that they tried to make it, because that movie, they tried to make it look as Star Wars-y as possible, but it still really wasn't. It missed everything about it. It missed the mark. And I feel it's the same thing with this. They really tried to make it sound as Korn as possible, while kind of missing, I think, what the actual true heart of Korn was. You know, because, I mean, on a purely superficial level, sure, it sounds like a mix of everything they've done before, you know, which probably was a great tagline that was probably printed on a sticker or something on the album cover. But
check out the greatest hits.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, there are a few really good songs on
this being one
Take
of them
a Look
to
in
me.
the Mirror. Yeah,
Did My Time
Did
is
My
one of
Time
them.
is good.
Y'all want a single?
There's actually a cover of Metallica's One at the end of my
which
copy.
Is pretty good.
That is from the MTV
Pretty good.
Icon.
Yeah, the Icon
performance?
as well. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, again, another band.
It's just
that
on
was
there too.
influential
It's so
from.
funny
Yeah.
at the end. Yeah.
Feel like we're running out of songs to put on here, so let's just do a cover.
Right.
I can see this being an album as a kid who has issues or follow. I mean, even Untouchables, and it's like, this is my Korn. Like, this is the Korn I love. And then getting this album and going, well, it says Korn on the front, and it's the guys on the back, but it doesn't sound like Korn.
I mean, it definitely does sound like them, but it doesn't sound good for the most part. I mean, it's at best it sounds very derivative of their other material, but not in a good way.
Well, it's like leftovers here.
You compared this record to Life is Peachy. Imagine you're that guy that liked Life is Peachy.
So then you should have.
So
liked this
you've
album.
been asking for the next Life is Peachy all these
Here
years.
you go.
All right, so Korn apparently caters to all of their fans, no matter how lame they are.
Well, not for much longer, but
Nope.
So this record comes out and something major happens.
what happens?
Brian Head Welch converts to Christianity and exits the band. In that order.
At least half of that is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm a power to him. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
I give him props for, at a time in his life where he needed to step away and have a higher purpose in his life, and good for him. Unfortunately, as us, as selfish music fans, we paid the price.
Yes, we did.
I remember him. It was mentioned, never heard directly from his lips, but it was mentioned that he didn't appreciate when they did a cover of Word Up, that Head and Monkeys
his head was
had been
imposed
put
on a dog.
dogs in a strip club, and he didn't appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's not why you leave.
Well, I don't think
No.
that's why he left the band.
That was just the icing on the cake, though. Where I think he was already on his way out by that point.
Well, he left the band because he was addicted to drugs and it was messing up his life.
They
and
were all in a
did-
pretty bad place.
right? And they were not feeding on each other in a good way.
And he expressed a serious disdain for the direction the band was going as far as songwriting is
Well, who
concerned.
could
Yeah.
blame him? I mean, geez, look at the stuff that they were doing from
Right.
that
I mean,
album
he
to
mentioned.
this one.
Well, yeah, he mentioned in his book that that the label was bringing in actual songwriters.
That's it. Who does song? I don't. Whatever. I mean, I'm against that kind of stuff for rock bands, metal bands. I mean, that's fine if you're a vocalist, a pop star or something, and all you do is sing well. That's fine. But
Right.
When you start doing that for rock bands, and just no.
Well,
just
and that's what
hang it
Head.
up.
That's pretty much what Head was saying.
yeah,
is
I
that
mean, you
know
gotta
this
be
is
done at that point.
this is not my Korn. Like
I remember buying this album.
Well, what was so bad about the follow-up? See You on the Other Side. I assure you, this question is rhetorical.
There's a lot. I bought this album, listened to the whole thing. There were 2 songs that I got into, and the rest of it was just, you can tell. God, how do you do? Dan, you take this. 'Cause
trying
I
to go
don't even-
pop.
This
Exactly,
The band was for some reason
trying to
not
sound
okay with being
poppy.
basically the biggest rock band in the world. I mean, I know Metallica was bigger,
Yeah.
but everybody was pissed off at Metallica at this time period. They had just released Saint Anger, and like nobody wanted to have anything to do with them. And so I remember hearing the song "Twisted Transistor" on the radio
I like that song.
on my way to the store to buy the record.
I like that and Coming Undone, and that's it.
Ended up buying From Enslavement to Obliteration by Napalm Death instead. This offended me as a metal fan beyond, like it's offensive enough that I listen to new metal, right? So
Many years later, a punk band by the name of Fall Out Boy will hang out with a pop producer and create great, timeless music. Back in 2005, however,
that doesn't happen.
Korn hanging out with a hip-hop producer does not produce the same results.
This is just not. I don't know. It's just not good. It doesn't flow well.
I'm
I
amazed.
still like the
even
song.
even
I
good
can't help
even
it. I
good
like it.
pop music is still good. You know what I mean? This is not even good pop music.
I think it's the guitar stuff for me just sounds weak.
Oh,
The
it's
lyrics
completely
sound
weak. Half the guitarists
Yeah,
are
I mean, it
missing.
just sounds- I still like this song. I like Coming Undone, but the rest of it, it's a weak album. You can tell there's people missing. You can tell that the lyrics aren't necessarily from John's heart.
Oh God,
The bass you don't hear very much at all. It's not that fieldy slap bass that you love that
Right.
keeps everything together. The drumming's not great. It's I don't know. I noticed listening to it definitely in headphones. The guitars, they turn them way up, and everything else doesn't sound. It doesn't sound mixed well.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say about this album. It's not very great.
Yeah, it's not good. You can tell that a principal songwriter's gone.
Yep.
100%.
And this is the first of what many would consider John Davis's creative explorations that ruined their Korn. Because he is blamed for this.
I can't blame him.
I'm
for
not gonna
all
blame him.
that.
No, I mean you gotta try and do what you gotta do and try what you want. I mean,
I can appreciate the fact that they continued to still do it, even though it may have been a good time to hang it up.
I mean, I can blame John Davis for a lot of things. The score to the film Queen of the Damned being the first thing that comes to mind.
we're not gonna discuss that, are we?
The next Korn record,
Well, that
which
was
is
good,
untitled. Oh, it was amazing.
Nah.
the songs he wrote, not like the whole soundtrack.
Yeah. Okay. I give you that.
They basically sounded like new Korn songs.
Yeah.
You know, I'll take a little detour here because I'm a sucker for MTV Unplugged. Korn does an Unplugged in 2007, prior to their next album. And it's not what you're expecting. They perform with this orchestra of weird musicians
People with
wearing
masks
weird
on.
animal masks. And I believe it was either Korn went on tour with this orchestra or they went on tour with Korn and John Davis would perform with them before the show. He was trying to do a lot more solo stuff. He did like a DJ thing called J Devil, which
you
is
can
a great
blame him.
name. He stole that name
It's
from me.
almost like he thought, well, Korn's probably on the way down, so I better get my
Right.
name out there.
Yeah, I bounced my last rent check
Yeah, I
this
better-
month, so
I
we
better
need
get
to
something going.
we need to get something else going on
Those
here.
mansions aren't going to pay for themselves.
Right.
So, surprising me and you, Dan, because I brought this album home and told you we need to listen to it.
We listened to the whole thing.
And we listened to the whole thing, and it was good. And that's 2007, Untitled
It was decent.
by Korn.
It was decent.
It was kind of weird. You watched a DVD, and John had written some songs on his own. The
All
lyrics
the lyrics
are
were
kind
how he's angry at Head for leaving the band.
Yeah,
of. You were the one that caught that.
Well, you said it on the DVD, like every other song. This
Yes,
song's
wasn't
about
this the
how
one that
Head
came
was-
with the DVD and the album? Yeah.
Yeah. Really, there's like maybe 2 songs on that record I like. I like Evolution because that's catchy, but it's still catchy in more of a pop way. So I'm not like, totally sold on it. But I mean, that was the big single off of this record. And then there was another one called Killing, which I like, if only because there's like a 30-second death metal-ish part in it.
Do you know why I love this record?
Huh.
Terry Bozzio.
Terry Bozzio,
For all of you drummers who know who that name is, let's just say the drum set was the biggest thing in the studio those days.
See, and what I'm noticing, though, on this record and even the next one is that it just seems to be a lack of creativity. The Korn sound is essentially gone.
Yeah. It's
The only
simple.
thing that's recognizable is John Davis's voice.
Yeah.
You definitely get the sense that the group is hanging out in the studio just trying to make some new music, rather than making new music and then recording it.
Right.
Like this album's like an obligation album. Like, all right, we got another album we have to do on our contract. So
Yeah, let's get it over with.
Yeah, let's see what we can do.
Should have put a recipe for chipped beef on there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good reference.
Yeah.
So is this, or the follow-up to this, which is Korn 3, Remember Who You Are, is this the second era of Korn?
No.
Not to me, it's not.
This
no,
is
no.
the era. This is the era that I think most people are going to stop at Untouchables, and they're going to skip directly to the Paradigm Shift.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the next album.
It's going to be
that I like.
seamless,
True.
Yeah.
And even that one wasn't great, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, it's the right direction.
yeah.
That's what we'll preview that with.
So I wanna take a little side note here.
No. Okay, go ahead.
So the whole time you're like, "Where's Korn? Where have they gone? They're lost. They're gone. I don't know what happened to this band that I like, and I don't know what the deal is. Where did that old Korn sound go?" Well, Head started doing his own music.
Do I need to pull this up?
I would.
It's worth noting. I mean,
He released his very first song, and it was with a video. It was called Flush.
I remember that video.
And I remember thinking, "Where's Korn? Where did Korn go?" And then I hear the first 10 seconds of Flush. And I was like, "Oh, there it is.
There's Korn.
It's still right there." He even sings like John Davis on the song,
Hanging out with the guy long
yeah.
enough.
Well, and Head has said multiple times John Davis is his favorite rock singer, who just happens to be in a band with him, But I mean, if you hear all the stuff going on in the background, like his lyrics were a little dumb, but I mean, he's still,
He's not a songwriter.
from a guitar perspective, he's great, and you can hear all. I hear these songs and I just wonder what these would have sounded like on the next Korn album.
Yeah. Had they been able to stay together.
Yep. And I mean, it's all there. The atmosphere, the guitar effects, it's all there.
He definitely didn't need Monkey like Monkey needed Head.
No, not at all.
And it's no disrespect to Monkey because I loved his writing with Head, but
Yeah.
he needed him. His creativity comes from, for the two of them going back and forth. Whereas Head can obviously do this on his own.
Right. So, and I mean, I wasn't like the biggest fan of this album, but it's just it's interesting in the sense that you literally wonder, was Head the heart and soul of the band? Because when I listen to this, I'm like, yeah, I can hear it
Musically, sure.
and you wonder, like, is Monkey, is he as great of a guitarist as we've given him credit for all these years?
I think he is, but I think at that point in Korn with them, I think with that direction that they were going in, it was almost like just showing, like it was heartless. I don't think his heart and soul was into it. I think they were showing up, and it was a paycheck at that point for them. Like it's
For sure.
Obviously and I would like to imagine that they were, great friends, a brother mentality. So
Oh, yeah.
when you have a member of your family leave like that, like, hey, I can't do this anymore, I'm sure a part of him goes with him, so there's just not that motivation. There's just not that heart and soul there to write the greatest thing you can think of at the time. So
Sure.
yeah, I'd like to think Monkey's as good a guitarist as I gave him credit for,
Yeah.
but
Well, they hired their touring drummer, Ray Luzier, at this time, and we get Korn 3, Remember Who You Are.
Yeah, which is really weird because this record still doesn't sound like Korn.
them, yeah.
You know? And this one's actually kind of all right on its own. If I'd maybe had heard it as a debut album from another band, I might think it was okay. But the
for
guitar,
Korn, it's not.
guitar is weak. It's very weak.
It's definitely in the vein of, I mentioned the second Life is Peachy. It's definitely in the vein of Life is Peachy because Korn's guitar tone historically was a little bit thinner.
Yeah.
And really the only complaint I could throw at this one, just definitive complaint, John Davis. It sounds like John Davis from See You on the Other Side went back and tried to re-record vocals on the first Korn record.
Yeah, and I mean, it does sound kind of like that, except that the music on the first Korn record was way
actually
better
good.
than this.
Definitely.
This is very drivel to me. The guitars are weak. You really can't even hear them that well. And what bothers me about all of it is it's fine if that's not the point of your record. If the point of your record is not to be heavy, I can't complain about your record not being heavy because it's not what you were trying to do. However, I get the impression that they're listening to this and they're thinking, this is just as heavy as the old stuff.
Oh, we're back, guys. We're back.
Yeah, we got this. We don't need head. We
Yeah,
don't need
we
any of
got
that
this.
stuff.
Moving on.
Yeah, we're,
Best of luck. And I don't think at this point, I mean, do you think that they were upset at him doing what he needed to do? I mean, I don't
know.
think John Davis ever really hated him for leaving. I mean, you can't hold it against him, certainly.
Well,
He might have been upset that he left, but I mean, I think ultimately you can't hold it against him.
Well, I did read his book, Head's book, Save Me From Myself, and he talks a lot about the band breakup and stuff, and he's like, he thought that, basically the band thought that, he was just going to write this book and he was just going to trash the band and say all this stuff or whatever. And when you read that book, like, it comes across like it's being written by a fan of Korn, like that they're his favorite band and he loves everybody that's in that band so much, and, that these were the reasons why he couldn't continue, and that it was more of a him problem and not as much of a them problem.
Oh, the old classic, it's me, not you.
Yeah, but I mean, it was very
but it's
sincere.
True.
Yeah, it was very sincere, and he never had any ill will against them,
which is why they maybe got back together.
Well, not quite.
Maybe they get back together. I don't know.
Not
Stay
quite.
tuned.
So I would say that this album, Korn, Remember Who You Are, it's not really even passable for Korn. It's just kind of like all right. If you heard it from another band, you might think it was okay, but it's really not. It's not going to rock your socks. I'm still going to be the same Dan after listening to that that I am now.
It's
yeah. It's an album. It's something that exists.
It's a little less than what comes next.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to be the first one to bring up the next album.
I'm just going to pass.
Straight pass.
I'm ready to go.
Can
to the one
we
after
please?
That. Guys, there's not a whole lot to say about the next album. I
Korn,
mean, it's not,
The Path of Totality.
Skipped it.
Yeah, it's not good.
Dan calls me and says, so we're going to do Korn in the next episode. I say, that's great. I listen to all the Korn. I get to Path of Totality, and I move on. Do you know why? It has an unmentionable on it, and I do not listen to the unmentionable. I won't even say its name.
It's basically a dubstep album featuring John Davis from Korn.
And, yeah.
That's, I mean, again, it's a thing that exists. I don't know why it exists. I don't know why it has Korn's name on it.
Money.
If that's your thing, you probably only listen to that, and you don't care about any of the other records.
Yeah, I mean, it's really...
And I have a big middle finger for you.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of dubstep, and I don't, so I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you if it's good dubstep or not, and I honestly, I don't care. So yeah, that's an album that exists, and you can check it out if you feel like hurting yourself.
2013.
Hold on, I was just looking at Joe's got notes, and I just see Joe's notes for this album is F this album. I was like, I had to bring it up, so that gives you the feeling of how we
show
feel about
notes,
this
Joe.
one.
Yeah.
I like that.
What can I say?
Love it. All right, moving on to an album that
I would have listened to it, except for it's unmentionable.
y'all want an album? F that.
It makes my pee smaller. Yeah.
All right. So
now we move on to some good stuff.
You want to tell the story about the reconciliation, Dan?
Sure.
Because we, had the reconciliation. You can find it on YouTube.
Yeah, there's a whole documentary about this.
It's good, actually.
So my version might differ from that, but go with my version because I'm always right. So
Dan, 2017.
Right.
Awkward.
Right. So, okay, 2013. Brian Head Welch had stopped doing solo music, and he joined a band, or he started a band called Love and Death, which also still sounded like Korn for the most part. and that's all great. Kicked my microphone there.
Mhm.
And it's all well and great. Love and Death is a cool band. You should check them out. Listen to their music. If you like Korn, you'll like Love and Death. You just will. So here's the thing about this: Love and Death starts playing a whole lot of shows. Basically, end up playing. It was inevitable, and eventually they end up playing at the same place that Korn's playing.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, it's
They
completely
sound
inevitable.
similar,
Yeah.
like, hey, let's just throw them on a bill together.
Makes so much sense. So then there's this idea hatched that, like, well, hey, maybe Head might want to get up on the stage and play one song with us.
Just one, Head. Just one.
Yeah.
That's how it starts. Just
it's
one.
a big
Come on,
deal,
man.
and
One song.
he's real nervous about it, and he's like, I don't know, guys. I'm doing my own thing now. This is different, and blah, 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 blah. And the band's more or less just like, come on.
Come on. It's just get on stage.
Come on.
We're not asking you to have a
on.
beer.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
get up
yeah.
here and just play.
Yeah, come on. It's fine,
Come
and
on.
So he comes out on stage, he plays Blind with him, and within like 1 second he's completely into it. I mean, just like head banging, perfect rhythmic head banging with Monkey, and it's crazy. John Davis is freaking out like he can't even believe what's happening is happening.
My band.
Yeah, it's just this. Yeah, my band is back. Yeah, and and that was cool. It was like a one-time thing, and it was no big deal, and it was cool. Everybody was happy. Blah 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 blah. And then what was it, like 6 months later? Head
If even.
rejoins Korn,
Yeah.
and they're writing a new album.
Yay.
Yeah, and the album that we got was called The Paradigm Shift, and
Which I like. It's not. It's well, I guess compared to the previous 2 or 3 albums, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, so I liked this a lot initially because again, it sounds like Korn. Like to me, that's a requirement. If you're going to put the word Korn on the front of the album, then the band is supposed to sound like Korn. And this record actually is the first one in a long time that's actually done that.
I know, it starts out and you go, wow, Head is back. You can definitely hear that Head and Monkey are back together writing music.
You can definitely hear it.
You hear Fieldy. You can hear it just sounds good.
I mean, I think this one's a little weaker than the older material.
Oh, it is, but I think definitely. I think it was when I first got this album, just how much excitement I had knowing these guys were back together, writing music. It didn't have to be anything great for me to be excited about this album because they were clean, they were healthy, and they were just here really just to do music again. I think at this point in their lives, it was, all right, we've already been successful, we've made our money, we're cut through all the bullshit, and let's just make music just to have fun with it. And I like this album just for that sole fact that they just sound like they're having fun again doing it.
Yeah,
doing what they wanted to do originally.
And it sounds pretty smooth, and the heaviness is back. It's not quite as heavy as it could be, but it's still heavy. I would say it's a little bit more on the See You on the Other Side side of heaviness, but you know what? That was the last album that Head was on with them, so it kind of makes a little bit of sense that it follows along.
Oh no, See You on the Other Side. Head was long gone before that came out.
I'm sorry. I meant to say Take a Look in the Mirror. Yeah, my bad. But yeah, so I mean, it makes a lot of sense that that's what it sounds like. This was a great record. It was a good comeback for them. I think Korn started getting a lot more notoriety again with this.
They were doing small venues again at this point, and it was great to see that they were just happy playing together again.
It's like a redo.
Yeah,
it's still a redo. Yeah,
like reset. We're gonna start over, and
Let's
you
try
can hear
this
it.
again.
Yeah, exactly.
And now comes to the new album.
I love it.
The Serenity of Suffering.
Love it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
good album.
Your and my Korn is back.
Yeah.
This album very much reminds me of what would happen if you took Issues and Untouchables, threw it in a blender, and then stuck just a teeny bit of Follow the Leader on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
I like it.
It's a good comparison.
You got the atmosphere.
We're back to heavy.
You got the heavy.
Heavy crunch.
You got the groove.
Yep.
Yep.
You can hear Fieldy pretty good. The drums are phenomenal.
Yep.
John sounds really good. The lyrics are pretty tight.
And when was the last time you heard John Davis throw down a scat?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Been quite some time, yeah.
If he did it on the Path of Totality, I wouldn't know.
Exactly.
So,
There's John Davis on that album?
Yes. All over it like a disease. But
It's just a good album.
wow.
As I said, it's a return. It's a return to the original sound.
there's unconventional song structures in this album too. The songs don't always go in the direction you think they're going to go in.
No, I think they fits this. It serves the song well from start to finish.
For sure.
It is a weird flow. I will agree with that. It is from song to song. It's a little not what you would think, but no, not expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think this band is a band that I'll continue to listen to as long as it continues to sound like this.
Yeah, if they're together and then this is the sound, then yeah.
Yeah, there's a guest vocal with Corey Taylor from Stone Sour is on here, and
Awesome. Who's actually going to be in St. Louis soon.
just good. Yeah, just good to hear him on a Korn song. We haven't before, and
it's exciting.
This record just really it carries on from start to finish. It doesn't go on too long. It's definitely got that classic Korn sound to it. If any album should have been called "Remember Who You Are,"
This
should have been it. Yeah,
should have been this one.
Yeah.
Subtitle for this should have been "Remember Who We Are."
Yep.
Remember Who We Are. Yeah, that's funny.
It's just exciting. I don't know. I seen them last summer. It was either right after or right before this album. When this single came out, they were in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I've seen them multiple times before here, and this is the first time in a long time that they just look like guys who were there to play music. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about fame, notoriety. They were there just to play music and have a damn good time. And Jonathan Davis sounds like a guy who is tickled to have his band back together. I have not seen that guy be that excited in a show and that genuinely happy to have his crew back.
Yeah.
It was cool. I look forward to seeing him here. I'm going to be seeing him here in May.
Cool.
Look forward to that show.
I'll be honest, I listened to this album, every album I listened to this week after Untouchables. When I got through it, I would go to this album just to kind of bring my spirit back up.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, I just listened to Take a Look in the
good
Mirror. Well,
refresher.
that wasn't bad. I'm going to listen to
Yeah.
Okay, I listened to Paradigm Shift. All right, I'm going to go back and listen to this.
Yeah.
I know it's not typical, but I like this sort of thing. Korn has done some very interesting covers over time. They did Wicked and Lowrider on
the
Life is Peachy.
album.
We snuck in that really weird and trippy version of Earache My Eye.
I love that. It's one of my favorites.
They pulled a greatest hits on us and put out a greatest hits album with a cover of Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall.
Oh yeah, that was done pretty well.
Yeah, they did a good job with that.
It's different. Sounds like
But that's
Korn.
what I like about cover songs. I don't want a band who's going to play a cover song like the original note for note. Take it and make it your own.
Right.
Do your own cover, like what it's done for you.
I like
That's
the
what
greatest
cover
hits
should be.
album because it actually eliminates all the stuff I didn't like on Life is Peachy. It just gives me like the one song that I
The
like
one
off
song
of
you
it. Yeah.
like. That's so funny. I don't want to crap on that album, but yeah,
They were featured on a Nightmare Before Christmas soundtrack mix album.
Yeah, but talking about movie soundtracks. Well, that's not a thing anymore.
Well, this
At
is
least I don't think
let's
it is.
let's get a band to record every piece of the score. And Korn, what do they get? Kidnap the Santa Claus.
Yep.
You know what? It sounds like a Korn song.
Yeah, it does actually. It's weird the time this was recorded because it wasn't really wasn't my Korn.
No.
It's so. But yeah, it's interesting that it retains that Korn sound better than what they were actually putting on the album.
That just gives you an idea where they were at the time. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Not my corn.
Not my Korn.
That's right.
Hashtag. Yeah.
Final thoughts on Korn? I know I don't plan on them going anywhere, but
Nope.
what do you got to say?
I like it. I like it a lot, and my metal credibility is now gone. But
I think that's bullshit.
I've
though.
I've always liked
Come on,
Korn.
you can't look at a bands like these and be like, well, you're not a real metalhead.
There was
if
a
you
time
listen to
Korn
these
was
bands.
your favorite heavy band.
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
And there's
and-
nothing wrong with that. I mean, they were a kick-ass band. They still are.
Well,
a
yeah,
kick-ass
Joe. When I
band.
was 15, but yeah.
Yeah, you know what Josh's favorite band was when he was 15? Metallica.
Metallica.
You know what Josh's favorite band today is? Metallica.
Metallica.
They'll be my favorite even after they're dead.
Right.
You know, Korn was here.
Been gone
Korn
for 30
disappeared.
years.
Korn, in my opinion, is back. So, whatever else they've got to give us, I'm ready for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm down.
I do. It looks forward to it. It's going to be good stuff in the future. I mean,
So let's not shy away. What's our least favorite song on our favorite Korn album?
All right, Josh, you first.
Children of the Corn for me is probably the least favorite. I don't hate it. It's not like a song. Don't get me wrong. I don't dislike it. I listen to it, but I guess out of all of them, I like that one the least.
I know I said that Follow the Leader is my favorite, but I don't want to just throw two songs of the same album under the bus.
Boo.
So I'm gonna grab the self-titled for a minute and say that for me, worst song on here, Helmet in the Bush.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, all right.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. What does it say?
It's a classic Korn song, Joe.
It's not like we dislike these songs, so don't get us
No,
wrong.
I know,
It's,
man.
It's like, here, pick your 15 favorite songs, and then tell me what your 15th one is.
Right.
Right.
I mean, so it's
Dan, I know yours is Untouchables, so what
No,
is it?
mine is Issues.
Yeah,
Oh.
Dan's Issues album.
I'm jumping in between.
Untouchables, it's beat it up right. But so
I think you just based on
on
issues. You'd have to
Issues-
answer the question.
on Issues is
Pulling away from me.
no, it's Hey Daddy.
Okay.
It's just kind of a
Yeah.
stupid little song that's
Yeah.
thrown in there.
Yeah.
Everything else is so atmospheric in that one because it's just
favorites
stupid,
from your
yeah.
favorite albums,
Hey,
then.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm in a good mood. Josh, favorite Korn song?
Got the Life.
Dan?
Let's get this party started.
Falling Away from Me.
I
I'm
was-
lying. It's Make Me Bad.
I was gonna say, oh my God. I'm glad I didn't say that because
That's just
actually
because that's just because of when he played it with The Cure.
Oh boy.
Hey, that was amazing, and
Oh,
that is
boy.
a reason to watch them do their Unplugged.
Very true.
All
Make
right.
Me Bad's the
Josh,
second.
album of the week.
Oh, let's go with, in the theme of Korn, listen to Korn's new album.
Dan?
Good stuff.
The Marriage of Heaven and Hell by A Plea for Purging.
We're back on that?
Yeah. I've listened to them more after we did the podcast than before.
Okay.
Well, hey.
I'm going to sneak into my recent activity because the name is escaping me at the
Well,
moment.
you don't know what you've been
But I'm
going
going to throw out The Righteous and the Butterfly by Mushroomhead.
Ooh, Mushroom Head.
Maybe we'll have to talk about them sometime.
Maybe it's a premonition.
And on that note, this has been episode 6 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you guys next week.
The pan that we use at the end of it is actually starting to sound kind of...
I don't.
Everybody give their money for hope. The preacher said